Welcome to Black History Month. I am Sylvia Cyrus, the Executive Director of ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. I want to take a quick moment to recognize all of the members of ASALH who are here with us tonight, especially our branches. There are over 40 ways that you can coordinate in your community with ASALH. Branch members, make sure you drop the information on your branch in the chat. I'd also like to recognize our executive council, our fantastic leadership for this association. So, as we are having this wonderful evening tonight, I want to make sure that you have the best experience that you can. So if you have any information that you would like to ask of our panelists, please go on and drop that in the chat. But I also want to invite you to join us. Be a member of ASALH and make a donation to ASALH. The way that we continue this work is with the help of our community. We know we can do it. So please join us, make a donation, and support ASALH. As I said, during this meeting, you can drop your questions in the chat. Please do so. And so tonight we are going to start our program with Lift Every Voice and Sing. It was written in 1900 by James Weldon Johnson and set to music by his brother, J. Rosamond Johnson. We actually have a branch in Jacksonville, Florida, named for James Weldon Johnson. In 1919, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, dubbed it as the National Negro Anthem. We would like to have you join us in singing Lift Every Voice and Sing, led by the Morgan State University Choir under the direction of Dr. Eric Conaway. You, Dr. Conaway and the Morgan State University Choir. We're here at ASALH, we support HBCUs. Frederick Douglass was one of the individuals who inspired Dr. Woodson to start Negro History Week. He was a member of Metropolitan AME Church in Washington, D.C. This evening, Reverend William H. Lamar IV, who is a community activist, is the current pastor of Metropolitan AME Church, and he will provide the blessing for our festival. Afterwards, we will have a video introduction for our 30th president, national president, Dr. Karsonya Wise Whitehead. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you very much. Let us take a moment to bless the space, the virtual space between us. Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, and Liberator of our people and all humankind. We come acknowledging those who came before us. We acknowledge those who built the houses in which we live. We acknowledge those who dug the wells from which we draw our water. We acknowledge those who planted the vineyards which produce the abundant harvest of indefatigable Black joy. Today we pause to ponder, to celebrate, and to do the work of futuring, of envisioning the next 100 years of ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Our commemoration, our celebration comes at a time when African American life is more fragile than it has been for many decades in the American Empire, and when authoritarian, totalitarian, misogynistic, misogynoir, anti-Black political leadership seeks to erase our history using the levers of power resident in executive leadership of the government. Amidst all of these swirling forces that seek to keep us from thriving, we continue to do what we have always done, and that is to move forward, trusting in the one who has brought us and believing in the power of those who will come to continue to build a world of justice and shared human flourishing. As we remember, we give our last words to Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who said, "Philosophers have long conceded, however, that every individual has two educators, that given to him and that which she gives herself. Of the two kinds of educators, by far the latter is more desirable. Indeed, all that is most worthy in human beings, we must work out and conquer for ourselves. It is that which constitutes our real and best nourishment. What we are merely taught seldom nourishes the mind like that which we teach ourselves. We go forward in the next century to teach ourselves all there is to know about African American life and history so that we might continue to build a world of shared abundance and flourishing for all mankind. And we do so under the watchful eye and in the power of the Creator and with the ancestors at our shoulders and before us. God be with you, and thank you.
Dr. Karsonya Whitehead is the president of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, known as ASALH. The organization was established on September 9, 1915, by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history. We are the founders of Black History Month, and we continue his legacy of speaking a fundamental truth to the world, that Africans and peoples of African descent are makers of history and co-workers in what W.E.B. Du Bois called the kingdom of culture. ASALH's mission is to create and disseminate knowledge about Black history, to be, in short, the nexus between the ivory tower and the global public. We labor in the service of Blacks and all humanity. This year, we celebrate a century of Black History Commemorations and the 100th anniversary of Negro History Week. Your speaker today is Dr. Karsonya K. Whitehead, the founding executive director of the Karson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice, and a professor of communication and African American Studies at Loyola University, Maryland. She is the host of the award-winning radio show Today with Dr. K on WEAA 88.9 FM and the 30th National President of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History.
Thank you so much to Reverend Lamar and Executive Director Cyrus, and to our EC board member Lopez Matthews for that amazing video. Welcome to Black History Month 2026. We proclaim it. We don't wait to be proclaimed. We proclaim ourselves. We don't wait for anyone else to see us. We see ourselves. We don't wait for anyone to write our history. We write our history. We remember our history, and we protect, promote, and preserve our history. In 1926, during the nadir of Black history, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the founder of ASALH, the son of formerly enslaved parents, a former sharecropper and miner, and the second Black person to receive a PhD from Harvard University, he launched the first Negro History Week. Now, he intentionally chose February because Black folks were already celebrating two birthdays: the birthday of Abraham Lincoln on February 12th and the chosen birthday of Frederick Douglass on February 14th. He chose that week, that month, to recognize and celebrate our contributions to American history. No one gave us the shortest month of the year. No one gave us Negro History Week. That came from us. The goal of the week is to study, teach, and promote the significant contributions that Black people have made to America, from our writers to our inventors, our politicians to our teachers, from our artists to our musicians. This was designed to document our lives from American slavery to freedom and to fill in the historical gaps that had deliberately been overlooked in an attempt to miseducate our children. It's still happening. And as long as it's happening, we will be here holding up the flag. In 1976, Negro History Week, which by that time had become Black History Week, which had become Black History Month, was officially recognized and proclaimed by President Gerald Ford. It was during the time of the bicentennial. Well, we are now at a moment where we're celebrating a century of Black History Commemorations, 50 years of Negro History Week, and 50 years of Black History Month. We have a month of activities scheduled for you, and we encourage you to celebrate and uplift Black history in your community. We invite you to follow us on all social media platforms and to both join ASALH, become a member, and make a donation. I often say that you should give your tithes to your church, give your offering to ASALH. The revolution will not be televised, but it's not cheap. We need people to lean in and help us, not just with your thoughts and prayers, but with your coins and dollars as well. This is the work that we have to do. We have a program for you tonight as we kick off Black History Month. I have been waiting for this for almost 15 years now, to be able to sit in the house of Woodson, to use Dr. Daryl Michael Scott's and Dr. Natanya Duncan's term, and to be able to do the work. Here's where we are. Tonight, we're going to look at our history from 3 different lenses. We're going to shift the prism from what is currently happening on the ground, and we'll use Minnesota as our lens. We'll then pull out a bit, and we'll frame this moment from a racial and cultural perspective, and we will end our conversation by centering on ASALH as both a knowledge project and a keeper of Black history. We will also highlight social artivism, from music to poetry, as spaces for resistance. We begin with Kay Lancaster. Her performances range from grand band ensembles to her stripped-down, one-of-a-kind trio with human beatboxer Chuck the Maddox and guitarist Bill Henry. More than a singer, Kay Lancaster is a storyteller. She weaves narratives into each song.
Thank you, Dr. K. And hello and good evening to everyone watching. I'm so excited and honored to be here before you. Happy Negro History Month, and we celebrate our melanin, our Blackness, and our excellence. Through this song of ministry, I hope to reach all of the Black women that I am proud of and proud to be a part of. So, as I sing, you tell me which woman you are. I know I can't hear you out there and I can't see you out there, but just engage. 4 Women by Nina Simone. My skin is black. My arms are long. My hair is woolly. My back is strong. Strong enough to take the pain. Inflicted again and again and again and again. What do they call me? My name is Aunt Sarah. My name is Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah. My skin is yellow. My hair is long. Between 2 worlds, I do belong. My father was rich and white. He forced my mother late one night. What do they call me? My name is Karsonya. My name is Karsonya. My name is Karsonya. Ooh. My skin is tan. My hair is fine. Ooh, my hips invite you. My mouth like wine. Whose little girl am I? Whoever has money to buy What do they call me? My name is Sweet. My name is Sweet. Yeah. Oh, my name is sweet thing. Oh, da 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 dum 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 da da dum 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 da da dum 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 da da dum 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 dum. My skin is brown. My manner is tough. I am the first mother I see. Oh, my life has been wrong. Oh. I'm awfully bitter these days because my heart was slaves. What do they call me? My name is Peter. Thank you, and happy Black History Month once again.
Thank you so much, Kay Lancaster, for helping us to ground this evening in rhythm and song. Now, Minnesota has become ground zero in the now nationwide efforts to organize and demonstrate against ICE and against this administration. With the recent killings of Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy, along with the killing of Keith Porter Jr. in Houston and Silverio Gonzalez in Chicago, resistance has been growing. On Friday, demonstrations were held throughout the country, including massive demonstrations right here in Baltimore. They had a demonstration during a snowstorm in Chicago and across the world in Milan and England, to name just a few. Additionally, something else happened. The Department of Justice under Pam Bondi arrested 2 Black journalists, Don Lemon and Georgia Fort, and at least 3 Black activists, Nikema Levy Armstrong, Traherne Jean Cruz, and Jamel Lydell Lundy, in connection with the anti-ICE protests that happened at a church in St. Paul earlier this month. We want to talk about that using Minneapolis as a lens to take a look at what is going on in this country. I'm joined by Erin Haynes. Erin is the editor-at-large and founding mother at the 19th. She is the author of The Amendment and host of the podcast also named The Amendment, and she is the current president of the National Association of Black Journalists. We're also joined by Dr. Uhuru Williams, a distinguished university chair and professor of history, and the founding director of the Racial Justice Initiative at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. Erin and Dr. Williams, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate both of you. I want to start with a clip from a recent press conference with Dr. Williams in response to what's happening now in Minnesota. Let's take a look.
The Constitution does not protect comfortable speech. It protects contested speech. It protects inconvenient speech. It protects the kind of inquiry that unsettles power. That was George's work.
Yeah.
That's King Demetrius's work.
Yes.
That's your work.
Yes.
If we allow the detention of journalists to become normalized, we risk hollowing out one of the core pillars of democratic accountability. And once hollowed out, institutions do not easily recover. Let me conclude by saying today that a free press is not a luxury. It is not ornamental. It is essential to the infrastructure for democracy. If we care about truth, we must protect those who pursue it. If we care about justice, we must ensure that prosecution is never weaponized to silence scrutiny.
Yes.
And if we care about the future of this democracy, we must be vigilant in defending the freedoms that sustain it, even and especially when they're tested. This is a test.
Come to you first, using this video as a framework. Can you outline for us, lay it out, what is currently happening on the grounds in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the Twin Cities as you continue to keep the pressure on ICE and this administration?
We're literally a war zone here, Dr. K. I think people don't appreciate the level to which this federal incursion in Minnesota is literally feels like we're being occupied by an army. When I say that you have 3,000, almost 3,000 ICE agents, Border Patrol agents in our community, we literally are in occupied territory. And you see reports that come out from the national media in particular that portray kind of large demonstrations here. I think they fail to appreciate the level of fear that exists in this community, the networks that exist to protect the vulnerable in our community, and the real danger this represents for American democracy and democratic practice. We are literally witnessing the crumbling of our democracy. In fact, I think back to the Declaration of Sentiments from 1905, when the women and men who gathered at Niagara talked about fearing this retrogression in terms of Republican ideas in that moment, and hoping that the majority of Americans will return to the faith of the fathers, that all men were created equal. We're in a similar moment in 2026.
I want to do a quick follow-up before I bring Aaron in, because we're hearing from independent media about the other stories that aren't being told, about people being kidnapped and disappeared, about people being picked up, their clothes taken from them, they're dropped off in the woods, about people showing up at the hospital and it looks like their heads are being bashed in, which is not being covered, of course, suppressed by the national media. Can you talk a little bit about the backstory of what is going on with that?
All those allegations are things that we've seen on the ground and are true. And I would also add, when Tom Holman this week described our community as a theater of war, I would ask everyone on this call in particular, and in the Black community, because of Black history, we know this intimately. When we talk about theater of war, think about all the abuses that occur in war zones. So that's only the tip of the iceberg. I'd like people to imagine 3,000 Border Patrol agents and ICE agents here separated from their families, and all kinds of other abuses which are occurring, as we're not dealing with the Epstein files. And I won't be more specific than that to say that, other than to say, when the truth is told about what has happened here on the ground, we will need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to really, and I won't even say rectify, I mean literally account for the abuses, the human rights abuses that are taking place here, the kidnappings, the disappearings, and various other crimes against humanity that are taking place in the space.
Thank you, Uhuru. Aaron, I want to come to you. I'm really thinking about Ida B. Wells and like turning the light of truth on and the work we have to do. As the president of the NABJ, you released a statement that read in part about the selective targeting of journalists, especially Black and LGBTQIA journalists. It raises urgent concerns about unequal enforcement and all of the retaliatory policing of the press. You said it mirrors a broader pattern in which government actors appear quick to criminalize those documenting injustice. Can you talk about that? Help us to understand how the freedom of the press, an essential right from the First Amendment, is being attacked and being suppressed.
Absolutely. And it's so good to be with you, Dr. K, and also with Dr. Williams, talking about Black History Month in conjunction with press freedom, because we know that the First Amendment is not optional. And we also know that Black journalists have always documented democracy under duress, right? You brought up Ida B. Wells documenting lynching, the Black press covering, Jim Crow violence to today's journalists that are covering protests. Black journalism has never been practiced in safe conditions, right? And so that history connects directly to why Black History Month exists in the first place, right? To document what the dominant narrative has often refused to record. And so, Black journalism is really not a sidebar to democracy. Frankly, it has been one of its most consistent accountability mechanisms. We know that Black journalism has been helping to tell the American story, and we must insist on that every single day. But particularly this month, we have an opportunity to highlight that. Minnesota matters right now because it's not just a site of protest. This is a testing ground. Right? The arrests of Don Lemon and Georgia Ford, those were not isolated incidents. They are reflecting a pattern that is aimed at journalists documenting state power, especially Black journalists, LGBTQIA journalists. When journalists are arrested for doing their jobs, that threat is not just to individuals. What we are really talking about, and why not just every member of our profession should care, but every member of the public should care, is because it is about the public's right to know.
Aaron, one of the things I was thinking about when we saw just kind of the public arrest and all the press around that is the ways in which white supremacy would go into our communities, targeting young Black men, women, and children, taking them out, lynching them, and then leaving their bodies up so that everybody who passed by could see, as a word of warning, an unspoken word that this could happen to you too. That's what I saw with the arrest of Don Lemon and Georgia Ford. Like, if you want to speak out, if you want to document what we're doing, if you don't tell our narrative, then you will be next. So can you talk about just that pushing through the fear to make sure the story gets documented and told?
Yes, and that's so important. I mean, just to your point, Dr. K, the message here that was sent by the arrest of these journalists is, either that journalists should not be covering protests, or that the covering of protests is not journalism. We know that both of those things are not true. And we know that them being arrested for committing journalism is wrong, because journalism is not a crime, right? So, our journalists so often are the trusted messengers in their communities. They're coming to give information that those communities would not otherwise have, that they very much need. Right. And so supporting credible journalism itself is an act of democratic participation. Following trusted journalists, especially those with deep community knowledge, can help people really separate the signal from the noise. And that is just so important right now, because we know this is a very chaotic and uncertain time, and the public is being so overwhelmed with content. They are being starved for clarity. They are seeking trusted messengers. And so when you are attempting to intimidate or silence or erase certain voices, what does that mean for those communities and the access to accurate, honest information about who and where we are as a country?
Dr. Williams, you recently wrote an op-ed, and you were together with us, folks. We had a convening just last Sunday on ASALH TV talking about Minnesota. And you mentioned that the op-ed, you use Be Good from Renee Nicole Good's last name. Can you talk about that? Because that kind of outline were ways of resistance, strategies for how to push forward.
What I talked about in that piece, Dr. K, is that what you saw with Renee Good and Alex Preddy were people who were exhibiting classic upstander behavior, folks who were not willing to stand by. There have been a lot of comparisons in this moment made to the way that white Americans, for example, stood up to the Fugitive Slave Act, because it brought the issue of slavery to their door in ways that they no longer ignore. And so in the article, I said there are some things that we can learn from Renee Good and now Alex Preddy. The first is be courageous on purpose. That E is exercise conscience. So if we see something, we've got to act. That G I think speaks directly to the history, the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. Grapple with the truth, even when it's inconvenient and uncomfortable. That O, oppose injustice where you stand. So we don't need an invitation. This is our fight. People say, well, I don't see how Black folks figure in this. A lot of these conversations over birthright citizenship, for example, or due process, those are all out of the 14th Amendment, which this nation owes to the Civil War and Reconstruction, which came out of the Black freedom struggle, the emancipation of slavery. The other O, offer humanity without apology, which has been the hallmark of so many luminaries within our community, from Pauli Murray to Angela Davis to Martin Luther King. And then last but not least, do the work consistently. And I think that's the most important, at least in terms of how we think about our history. We've always been at the front line because, as Aaron said, democracy. Black folks have been saving democracy since 1776.
And so, Aaron, I want to end by coming back to you, because I know that the 19th has also been on the ground documenting what's happening. In fact, next week on February 10th, ASALH and the 19th are going to be partnering, taking over so we can uplift Black History Month. Can you speak for a second about the importance of not only following trusted journalists, but going to the websites that help to filter through the noise that are there to help us understand and frame this moment for what it is?
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I'm so excited that ASALH and the 19th are going to be collaborating for Black History Month. The 19th is a news organization that I helped to found 6 years ago because we knew that political journalism was too male and too pale, and that we could tell a different story about people listen, it's true, who have been unseen and unheard in our democracy, right? So we're talking about women, we're talking about people of color, we're talking about LGBTQ people, the disability community, the caregiving community, all of these historically marginalized communities who we know are part of the emerging small d democratic majority of this country. And so I'm so thankful for your work, your witness, your leadership, your partnership, as we are opening the 100th anniversary of Black History Commemorations at a moment when our history is not just being debated, right? It's being contested, it's being criminalized, and it's being actively erased. So, for us at the 19th, we feel like the work of our time is really to confront the unfinished business of the 19th Amendment. And a lot of that is to continue to correct the record, and also to continue to bring in those who have been unseen and unheard in this democracy. And also, we just know that Black journalists have always played a role, a central role in documenting the truth when others would rather obscure it. And that is really what we have to do in this moment. And I'm just really, really, really grateful that organizations like this one, the 19th and the NABJ exist to protect Black journalists when these institutions are failing us. So that means speaking forcefully when our members are targeted, naming patterns and not just incidents, because we're going to be clear about this. We're not neutral on attacks against the press or against history.
I love that. Thank you so much, Aaron Hayes from NABJ. Dr. Yahuwah Williams coming to us live from Minnesota. Thank you for the work that you are doing.
Thank you.
So, folks, as we move into talking about from democracy to fascism, we're going to explore the shifting tides. In 1963, at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, Dr. King began his speech by noting that he was happy to join with them in what will go down as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. I believe that we're actually at that moment right now, where we're being worn down with everything from ICE to threats to take Greenland, from discussions about Venezuela to the work to destabilize NATO, from the creation of a billionaire board of peace to tearing down a ballroom and making plans for an Indy 500 race through the streets of Washington, D.C. Now, I could go on, but it is absolutely exhausting. I want to refocus the lens so that we're all clear on what is happening and why it's happening. I'm joined now by Damon Hewitt, the president and executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. I'm also joined by Kevin Manufo. I want to note, unfortunately, Professor Kimberlé Crenshaw is under the weather and was unable to join us. So Kevin Manufo is joined in her stead. He is a senior research and writing fellow for the African American Policy Forum. He also directs the research and writing initiatives at AAPF and speaks on critical race theory, intersectionality, and race and racism and the law, both in the United States and in South Africa. And we're joined by Reverend Adam Russell Taylor, the president of Sojourners. He was selected in the 2009-2010 class of White House Fellows and served in the White House Office of Cabinet Affairs and Public Engagement. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Yes. And so, Damon, let me begin with you. Last week, your organization put out a statement arguing that the recent arrest of Don Lemon and Georgia Ford are chilling examples of authoritarianism and threats to democracy. The shift from democracy to authoritarianism does not happen overnight. Indeed, it has been a slow-moving shift. So can you talk about why this latest escalation is perhaps the most alarming step that essentially has moved us closer to an authoritarian government? We are unable to hear you. Damon, if you can try once again, sir. All right, so we will fix his audio while we're working on that. Let me go to Kevin from AAPF. So in response to the attacks on Black history, singling out Black women leaders and rolling back on DEI and civil rights protections, AAPF produced a report called Anti-Blackness is the Point. Can your understanding of anti-Blackness help us to interpret, resist, and connect the dots between the current attempts to turn back the clock on democracy and the work to return us to an era of resegregation?
Thank you, Dr. K, and happy Black History Month to everyone out there. I send warm greetings from Professor Kimberlé Crenshaw, who regrets not being here today. But yeah, I'm very happy to talk a little bit about our reports. And it's, I feel very comforted to be in this space, but we recognize that we're having this conversation, in a context where Black history is under attack now more than ever. Over the past year, we've seen the Trump regime move to slash the Department of Education, unravel diversity programs, reverse civil rights protections, and strip funding from the Smithsonian, most notably the Blacksonian of the National Museum of African American History. And so part of what we wanted to do is to make the claim, and it's a truthful claim, and I think it's the point of ASALH and Black History Month, that Black history is American history. It's what took us to actually go and defend the Smithsonian last year over May 3rd. And part of what we wanted to do was to show the ways in which anti-Blackness was one of the fuels that was being leveraged to, basically create a fire in our democracy. And we want to be clear what we mean when we say anti-Blackness. We don't say that when we say anti-Blackness, we don't mean that only Black people are suffering, or that if we solve anti-Blackness, everything else will be fixed in our democracy. But it does mean that anti-Blackness is one of the most powerful fuels in causing this fire in our democracy. And it's the one that is most often ignored in this moment. And so to be specific, let's look at what some of the attacks on history. So we know that the attack on the Smithsonian was based on the fact that the Smithsonian, apparently used an improper ideology, which was that race was a social construction. And what the regime was trying to tell us was that race is natural. And in effect, what they're trying to tell us is that white supremacy, racial inequality is natural as well. And so if we recovered this history, what would it mean if we understood ICE in the context of the Fugitive Slave Act? What would it mean if we understood that fascism is as American as apple pie? It's not a European import. It's something that has happened to Black people for decades in this country. And so part of what our report was trying to do was to connect the dots, to provide the receipts of the various ways in which anti-Blackness was fueling this attack, and what happens when we incorporate an anti-Blackness understanding and lens to our activism.
Thank you so much. And I see that Damon has returned. Yes. I'm glad you're here. So I want to go back to my question, because your organization put out a statement, and just to repeat it very quickly, but you were talking about the recent arrest of Don Lemon and Georgia Ford. You said these are chilling examples of authoritarianism and threats to democracy. So I wanted you just to quickly talk about why that last step, that last escalation that we just saw, is the most alarming one, because it's that final move and push closer to an authoritarian government.
Right. Thank you. And sorry for that tech hiccup. Thank you for kicking off Black History Month in this way. As I say to folks, we have to focus on Black futures, because otherwise Black history is all we'll have left. So this latest move is so disturbing, because we actually expect at this point for individuals, for institutions, for infrastructure that this administration doesn't care for, that's speaking out in dissent to get some pushback. I'm not saying it's okay, but we actually expect that. But what we're seeing now is a threshold being crossed from chilling voices of dissent to simply chilling facts, period, right? And so just because this administration doesn't want to tell the truth doesn't mean that reporters, especially independent Black journalists, shouldn't be able to report the truth. So this is not just spinning alternative facts and false narratives. This is stopping literally from people from seeing real-time facts and reporting from the ground as the atrocities happen. That is the same thing that we've seen in the authoritarian playbook in other countries around the world throughout history. And if we can at least get this stuff reported, then how can we ever actually really address it?
Well, thank you for that. I want to bring Reverend Taylor. Let me come to you, because if you can help us to connect the dots between social justice and faith and the level of activism and the legacy of activism within the Black community, bring together these two spaces that need to be involved in some of the work to make sure we don't become an authoritarian system.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first I want to thank ASALH for organizing this, and no better way to start this month than in this kind of state of reflection and of looking forward. So I just first want to give a quick shout out. My mother became the first Black woman to serve as a vice president at 2 different universities. And I know that many of us can make these kind of shout outs, but I just want to mention that. And that's important to me because she has instilled in me not only that kind of her generation passed on the unfinished business of the civil rights movement to Generation X, and then we are hopefully passing on to future generations as well, but also that remembering is so critical. And kind of putting on my faith hat, I'm grounded in the Black church tradition. I lead an organization called Sojourners that works with churches from all traditions, from evangelical to Catholic to mainline to Black church. But when we think about that moment when just before the Israelites went into the promised land, God, through Moses, told them to remember that they had to recall all that God had brought them through, the struggles, the pain, etc. And so I think there's something really, really powerful about remembering that we cannot let go of. And I think that is woven into the history of Black History Month. I want to just build a little bit on the last panel, because I, along with over 700 faith leaders, went to Minnesota, went to Minneapolis in particular last week at the behest of 2 organizations. One is called Isaiah and one is called March. They put out a call because they believed it was echoing the history, particularly the history of the Selma March, when Dr. King put out a call to multi-faith leaders to go and to join him in order to fight and struggle to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965. What we are seeing in Minneapolis is the tip of the spear of this administration's effort to try to consolidate power and control. And what we're seeing is not just a violation of fundamental constitutional rights, it is an assault on our faith. And one of the things that I was really proud of in being a part of the ICE out of Minnesota march and rally, I was a part of a prayer service that Isaiah organized on the Friday evening. I was in support of an action that took place at the airport, actually trying to pressure Delta Airlines and Signature Airlines to stop contracting with DHS and ICE and providing plane rides to ICE agents, etc. Is that on the one hand, we are learning and building on history, but we are also developing new wineskins in this moment. The new nonviolent weapon for truth-telling and for change has become a whistle and a cell phone. Literally the cell phone that Alex Preddy was holding in his hand when he was trying to film what was happening and then was brutalized and ultimately murdered by ICE officers. Whistles. Community members are blowing whistles to alert their neighbors about the presence of ICE and to ensure that they can reach safety and be protected. And so there's so much more to say about that, but I just want to emphasize that, certainly I know the church, and including the Black church, is not monolithic, but I'm seeing a kind of awakening, a revitalization of a commitment to justice within the church, and that includes the Black church. And, at least from my understanding of the gospel, you can't separate a commitment to justice and liberation from a commitment to following Jesus.
No, thank you for that. One of the things I'm thinking of as we're talking about the battles that are going on in the streets, the battles really for hearts and minds and for people's perspective, it's not just this pushback, it's also a battle over the narrative. Who gets to tell the story? What gets taught and told afterwards? So Kevin, I want to bring you back in here because I know that you just returned from the Sundance Film Festival where AAPF argued that the narrative battle is just as important as the political battle that we are in. Can you help explain why we must see the battle for our stories as a cornerstone for our defense of Black history?
Yeah, and I'd just like to build on both Damon and Reverend Taylor's comments. They mentioned alternative facts and the truth. and why remembering is so crucial. And one of the reasons why we've attended Sundance every year since January 6th is because one of the ways in which people have a vision about who belongs and who does not belong in this country is because of the stories people tell themselves. And one of the most powerful, in fact, the most powerful American medium by which people tell stories about themselves is film and television. And so part of what we do at Sundance each year is have a conversation about how do we tell a more inclusive story of us. So it's not just about diversity for its own sake, but it's about what happens when we foreground Black history in American storytelling. How about when we foreground Black stories in the overall narrative about what this country has become. And so this year in particular, we were interested in uncovering the history of McCarthyism. And so earlier you had a segment about the journalists, the Black journalists who have been charged with crimes. And that is the most reminiscent of the McCarthy era. And a lot of people don't really even know about the ways in which the McCarthy era destroyed the careers of many Black entertainers, Black creators, Black journalists, Black writers. And so what we wanted to do is recover the history of McCarthyism, ask the question about why Hollywood has been complicit in a telling of that history that has excluded Black voices, and what lessons can we learn when we bring the voices of those who were purged. That includes people like Paul Robeson, Harry Belafonte, Lorraine Hansberry, Hazel Scott. We bring their voices and their experiences to this moment to understand what the problem and the scourge of censorship really means. And so we had a wonderful program which featured people like Viet Thanh Nguyen, the writer, Jacqueline Stewart, the professor, and Ava DuVernay, the director, together with artivism performances, bringing these voices into the room. And it really was a moment where we asked the fundamental story about how do we tell a more inclusive and expansive story of us. So I'd encourage folks to follow us at aapf.org. If you're interested in following our conversation, we'll be having a broadcast of it on February 11th.
Thank you. And folks, I know you're in the chat. The chat is hot from what I've been told. And people are asking, what can I do? How can I get involved? We are giving the handles and websites to all of our guests. And at the end of the program, kind of in the President's Corner, I'm going to lay out some steps you can do, what I call daily acts of resistance. Resistance is a muscle. And just like you got to get out and exercise, you got to exercise your body, exercise your brain. You have to exercise the muscle of resistance, which takes me back to you, Damon, because there's always been this belief that the courts, especially SCOTUS, were in place to hold the line and uphold the laws. We are witnessing an incredible moment in time as SCOTUS, with this 6-3 right-wing majority, is reshaping the law to fit the agenda of the president. At the same time, with the Republican majority, though the margin is getting smaller over in Congress, the elected leaders are not taking any steps to rein in his ever-expanding power. But it's clear he's in trouble. His approval ratings are dropping every day. And with the release of the 3 million or so Epstein files that I don't even recommend you read at night because they're so horrific, there's a growing public outcry for things to change. But change does not come easy. So can you outline for us what change would look like at this moment, and how can we help to bring this change to bear?
Yeah, change does not come easy. There are multiple ways we can approach accountability. There's certainly legal accountability through the courts, which, at the highest levels feel so intellectually dishonest, frankly, and compromised, but we have to keep that avenue alive. In fact, organizations like the Lawyers Committee and others, we win most of our cases in the trial courts. It's the question is when we go up to the Supreme Court at that level, even some of the appellate courts, what happens? We can't stop trying. There's certainly political accountability, which is, the electoral process, what have you. We encourage everyone to exercise your rights to vote, and really, frankly, to help other people too. Everyone can get information from, but also volunteer through the Election Protection Coalition. You can go to 866ourvote.org, 866ourvote.org to find information about the Election Protection Coalition, how you can volunteer, but also when and how voting is happening in your jurisdiction, because early voting starts this month in some states, including places like Texas. So that's important. But then there's also lifting up our collective capital. That's what you're seeing in Minneapolis. I'm not saying everyone has to put your life and your liberty on the line, But the thing that the other side loves is to have the narrative be whatever they want it to be. The more we can start to raise our voices at your dinner table, start there, and your family, because there's always somebody in many families who has certain views. You want to have a contest of ideas. Lift it up at your school board meetings, at your city council. Make sure that there's no place, there's no quarter where people think our voices don't matter and our voices cannot be heard. And if that means the streets and peaceful protests, then it should mean that as well. So we have to fight back across the board. You know, you can't have a constellation of stars where one single star is the point. It's going to take all of us doing the things that we can do in the lanes that we do occupy to actually make that beautiful, brilliant constellation that we need to really fully fight back.
Thank you for that. I come to Reverend Taylor for your final question here, because I'm thinking about the mission of Sojourners that I saw on your website, that it's about faith in action. With that approach to social justice, focusing on issues like racial equality, environmental stewardship, and peace. What is the role of the church, which during the civil rights movement, it was the place we met. It was a place we got built up. We were not texting each other. We were talking in church over, chicken dinners in the afternoon, trying to figure out what to do on the ground. What is the role of the church in this moment, to be an organizing space for us?
Yeah, it's an extremely timely question. And despite, many of the real challenges facing the church, in some cases declining memberships, in some cases being kind of seduced by bad and false theologies, whether it's the health and wealth gospel or even Christian nationalism, which is really fueling so much of the MAGA movement today. I still believe, and I see evidence of this, that the Black church and the church more broadly continues to be the conscience of the state. And that is what Dr. King described it should be at its best. And in many ways, it is a balm for communities. It's providing an incredible amount of mutual aid, particularly in a time when so many communities are under attack and are facing harm, and our history, as we've talked about, is being censored and whitewashed. It is a beacon of light that is able to do some of the truth telling that we so desperately need, particularly because of the powerful prophetic tradition of the church to speak truth to power. And it's an organizing engine, in part because of the buildings that people can meet in part because of the moral authority that many pastors and clergy still wield. And so I'll just give you a really concrete example, and I'll end here. I'm really grateful that I get to work closely with Damon and the Lawyers Committee. We have a partnership through a campaign called Face United to Save Democracy. Mm-hmm. In many ways, we're trying to rebuild that fusion coalition that was, a real engine in the civil rights movement, particularly around winning the 1965 Voting Rights Act. After we saw a slew of new restrictions and new forms of voter suppression come into play after the Supreme Court gutted the, Voting Rights Act in 2013, and we're now facing even a further weakening of the Voting Rights Act, depending on how the Supreme Court rules very soon. We thought it was really critical to mobilize Black churches, but then have them partner with Jewish synagogues and rabbis, to partner with imams, to partner with many predominantly white churches from mainline traditions, evangelical traditions. So we have over 40 national religious partners that are involved in this campaign that is literally working in 9 battleground states to ensure that everyone can exercise the freedom to vote, the right to vote. And we're rooting it in the theological concept of Imago Dei, that we're made in the image and likeness of God. Because anytime someone makes it harder for certain communities to vote, let alone deny them voting, is therefore an attack on the Imago Dei itself. It's an attack on our faith. We have trained over 1,000 poll chaplains to provide a moral presence at polling sites. We're using the 1-866 Our Vote hotline. And we're also doing a lot of work to make sure that the 30 million people that currently lack the right ID because of these new restrictions are able to access them. And the estimated 19 million people that have been purged from voting rolls can get reinstated. And so again, I think that, again, the Black church is anchoring that work, but it has to be a multiracial, multi-faith coalition that's going to get the job done.
And as a quick follow-up to that, Reverend Adam, people in the chat are asking if you could just take a quick moment and just address the issue of climate and environmental justice before I go to Kevin to wrap this segment.
No question. Thanks for that. I mean, we are facing a climate crisis. I lose sleep at night because I have two Black sons, 13 and 15 years old, who are facing a much more endangered, fragile future because of the harm and damage we are causing to the environment, particularly within predominantly Black communities, Black and brown communities, but also because of the crisis of climate change. And so, we've seen an administration that is steeped in climate denial, and we have to work diligently to name that as not only an injustice, but something that is literally a danger to the future of the planet and the future of our lives. And so, I really think about addressing climate change through the lens of environmental stewardship, that in Genesis 1, God calls us to be stewards of the earth, not to dominate the earth, but to be stewards of the earth. And we need to convince particularly more Christians to take that seriously and then to act boldly as a result.
I think of that quote I heard as a child, that you're only borrowing the planet from your children. You didn't inherit it from your parents, right? So Kevin, I'll come to you for our last question for this segment here. I'm thinking about something that Ava DuVernay said at your recent Sundance performance, which has just stayed with me. Fear is contagious, but so is courage. I want you to talk with us about acts of courageous resistance that everyone needs to engage in at this time, participating in intentional acts of resistance, protecting our knowledge, shoring up your knowledge base. And I know that AAPF has resources that outline kind of daily acts of grounding in your liberation calendar.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. K. And I just, one of the things that sticks in my head is that, there's often said that when someone tries to steal something from you, you should know that it's valuable. And I think when I look at the images in Philadelphia of them literally chiseling Black history off of Independence Hall, it should tell you that there's things there that are important and are valuable about our resilience, about our struggles, about how far we have come. So one of the ways we're trying to do this and trying to kind of coalesce a lot of this history is through our Liberation Calendar project. Our Liberation Calendar is a daily dose of history into your inbox every morning. Every morning, the calendar provides a new way to root ourselves in the wisdom of those who came before us and persevered in eras of backlash. It celebrates Black truth tellers, Black leadership, Black spaces and places, and Black memory. Each week has its own theme, and each day has its own theme as well. So Tuesdays are opportunity to take time that we need to mourn those we have lost. Wednesdays focus on the stories of Black resistance that inspire ways to action. Thursdays call on power of creativity and joy through music, art, and dance. And we also uplift some of our icons, people like Ida B. Wells, as you mentioned earlier, Toni Morrison, but also honors those who are less well known, people like Hazel Scott and Dr. Janelle Green Smith, who was the maternal health advocate who sadly passed away a few weeks ago. We know the Liberation Calendar and Black history is a personal practice, but we encourage people to join it with family, with friends. We've heard that that's the way that it's most enjoyable to experience, like any sort of celebration and commemoration. And we will be sharing resources every day throughout the month of Black history, related to freedom to learn, say her name, together with resources that our partners have produced. So if you're interested in a way to have a little daily practice commemorating and celebrating Black history, then Liberation Calendar, I think we have it up on the screen. There's a great way to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Reverend Adam. Thank you, Damon Hewitt. And I also want to thank Tanya Clayhouse from Clayhouse Consultant, who helped to put this segment together. We appreciate you. May history document the work that we're doing to both push back and push forward. Thank you so much. So music has always been a form of resistance in our community. From Negro spirituals to folk freedom songs, sometimes you only need to hear a little bit of the music and it takes you back to a time. It has a way of capturing our attention and shaping our emotions. Dan Zanes is a Grammy award-winning musician who performs with his wife, Claudia, a Haitian-American music therapist and jazz vocalist. Both of them are based here in Baltimore City. Their latest album, Pieces of Home, was released on Smithsonian Folkways Recordings. Please welcome Dan and Claudia.
Thank you so much, Dr. K. Happy Black History Month. We are so honored to be here with you all tonight. This has been such a rich conversation. And as we know, music has played such a pivotal role in the Black experience. We know that the power of collective singing, it regulates our nervous systems, it restores our connections to one another and to our ancestry as well. And I think what I really love about it is, singing doesn't require any kind of status, any kind of permission, any kind of education. So all of you who are here tonight, as we are celebrating the first day of Black History Month, we want to invite you all to make a joyful noise with us. We want you to, it doesn't matter if you feel you can sing or can't sing, we want you to make a joyful noise, because we know that music has been a part of our healing, and it's been a really important way to express ourselves. This tune, it got its start in the Black church, the African American church, and we don't know who the composer of this song is. We know that it was sung in the church. And I really love that, because to me, it means, this song doesn't belong to one person. It is our song. And this happened to also be Fannie Lou Hamer's signature tune. She made it her own. It was the way that she led. This song was so fitting for her. Her raw voice, her realness came through in this tune. And so we want to do this song with you all tonight. We can't hear you due to, technology doesn't allow for all that yet. But one day we want to sing together This Little Light of Mine. This is our version of this tune. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine. Oh, all around the neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine, shine. All around the neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine. Whoa, 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 I got the light of peace and love. I'm gonna let it shine. I've got the light of peace and love. I'm gonna let it shine. I've got the light of peace and love. I'm gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine. Well, what's the promise to a doubting Thomas? What good's the sun if it can't go ahead every day and shine down upon us? Being brave enough to have the heart to say I love you. If we go way back, or even if I don't know you, this life will show you how beautiful things can be. Music will always show us how it is to feel the beat. So let's keep this light shining. All right. Hey, I got the light of freedom. Let it shine. Oh, I got the light of freedom. I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, I got the light of freedom. Let it shine. We're gonna let it shine, shine, shine. Let it shine. All right, sing it like you mean it. Here we go. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine. We're gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine. We're gonna let it shine, shine, shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
All right. Like Claudia said, it is such an honor to be here today with you all. 100 years commemorating Black history. Thank you for including us. For this final song we're going to sing with you all, it also has deep roots in the Black church. But for us, it really came alive through Ella Jenkins, who is known as the mother of children's music, modern children's music. And she's done more than any other person that we know of to elevate the spirit and the depth and the width of the music that is played for young people. And she, in her introduction to this song, she talked about learning it from the Freedom Riders. So that's where that's the kind of information that she was bringing to young people. Not only was the song, but where she learned it. And so we're going to sing "Guide My Feet." Please sing along with us.
Guide my feet, Lord, while I run this race. Oh, guide my feet, Lord, while I run this race. Yeah. Guide my feet, Lord, while I run this race. 'Cause I don't want to run this race in vain. Hold my hand, Lord, while I run this race. Hold my hand, Lord, while I run this race. Hold my hand, Lord, while I run this race. 'Cause I don't want to run this race in vain. No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't want to run this race in vain. Oh, won't you search my heart, Lord, while I run this race? Yeah, search my heart, Lord, while I run this race. Ooh, search my heart, Lord, while I run this race. Yeah, 'cause I don't want to run this race in vain. Ooh, stand by me, Lord, while I run this race. Stand by me, Lord, while I run this race. While I run this race. Stand by me, Lord, while I run this race. 'Cause I don't want to run this race in vain. No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't want to run this race in vain. Guide my feet, Lord, while I run this race. Oh, Lord, won't you guide my feet while I run this race? Ooh, guide my feet, Lord, while I run this race. Oh, because I don't want to run this race. I don't want to run this race. I don't want to run this race in vain. I felt that, y'all. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan and Claudia. We really appreciate it. They're based in Baltimore, but they're actually in Colombia now. So thank you for tapping in with us. So as we turn to our last segment, Dr. Charles Long once argued that America is a complicated place with a history that is both beautiful and bloody. The study of it requires constant and continuous interpretation, upkeep, meaning-making, and evaluation. The understanding of it requires us as Black folks to see ourselves and our history not only through our eyes, but in the ways in which we frame ourselves in seeing other people. 100 years ago, when Dr. Carter G. Woodson launched Negro History Week, he was reshifting the gaze from defining ourselves through the white lens and the white gaze to defining ourselves in our own words. It's not something that he started, it's something that he just put structure around. As the 30th person and 8th woman to sit in Woodson's seat, I think often about what it means to do the work to protect, promote, and preserve our history. Now, this includes our work in the schools through the publication of the Black History Bulletin. And folks are asking, what about resources for children and teachers? Our Black History Bulletin is the place where you can get these resources. Lesson plans for teachers of all levels, parents of children of all ages, you can find that. We have our work in the community, preserving local history through our 40 ASALH branches. If you look around and go on our website, there's probably a branch near you. Join and ASALH branch help us to record and protect and preserve local history as well. We have our work in our 9 freedom schools. We have freedom schools in 9 places around the country, and we're going to extend to 14 by the end of the year. We have one right here in Baltimore at my institute. It's a free Saturday class for adults teaching Black history. We have our upcoming luncheon on February 28th. We're going to unveil 2 new stamps from the Postal Service, and we have a fall convention. ASALH, since 1915, has been holding our history. Now, I believe that history must be written of, written by, and written for the young by the generation that is looking backwards but living forward. So I want to turn the lens once more and zoom out for a national framing of this moment through the lens of ASALH. Joining me now is Dr. Daryl Michael Scott, a professor of United States history at Morgan State University and the chair of the Department of History, Geography, and Museum Studies. He sits on ASALH's EC, our executive council. He's never going to leave. And he served as our national president from 2013 to 2015, taking us through the centennial. We're also joined by Dr. Bertis English, a professor of history at Alabama State University, and the editor for ASALH's Journal of African American History, which we, of course, affectionately call JAAH, which was founded in 1916 by Dr. Woodson. Thank you, gentlemen, for our ASALH conversation. So Dr. Scott, let me come first to you. Because you are the person that will help me kind of frame what this moment means. Because many people see 1926 as the beginning of the celebration of Black history. But Dr. Woodson, with the launch of Negro History Week, gave structure to what was already happening in our community. Like, look, we were already celebrating Decoration Day, which later became Memorial Day. We did it in 1865, long before America adopted as a federal holiday in 1973. We were celebrating the birthdays of Lincoln and Douglas. We were already doing what Arturo Schomburg talked about in this essay. We were reclaiming, researching, and celebrating our history. So can you take us back and help us to come forward and frame the overall significance of this moment, a century of Black history commemorations?
Okay, well, you're still in a lot of thunder there, but let's see if I can still have something to say.
You got something to say.
No, yes, I do. Look, African American people in the United States have always understood the power of history. We were told as an enslaved people that we had no past, that we had made no contributions to history. And so that early free Black community in the North went out of its way as soon as they became literate to start keeping our past. In the 1830s, we already had a library in Philadelphia where Black scholars would deposit records about the Black experience in America and in the world. We identified ourselves with the Bible and the historical Black people in the Bible, lifting up our hands as Ethiopia to be free. So we have always understood this. So when we became literate and we had a free Black population, we started thinking about our contributions to history. Now, sometimes I joke with people who say, well, there's no history. We don't know our history. Everybody else has a history. You know, one of the funniest things to me is that I watch Black people preserve their history in ways that nobody else does, okay? We are keepers of the record because we believe that we have made a difference in this country and in human history. So when we say that we're not keeping our past, no, we are obsessed, relatively speaking, with keeping our past. We have celebrated holidays. We celebrated the ending of the slave trade. We celebrated the ending of slavery in New York, Emancipation Day. We celebrated the ending of slavery in the West Indies, the what we call the rights of August. So we have always celebrated history throughout the 19th century. And as you pointed out, once the Civil War came, this did not stop. We celebrated not simply the first quote unquote Memorial Days, with Decoration Day becoming Memorial Day. We also started celebrating Abraham Lincoln's birthday in the immediate aftermath of his assassination. Then, when Frederick Douglass, our local hero, died eventually in 1895, we started celebrating his birthday. In fact, one of the most interesting things, if you go through the newspaper records, is you'll find that Lincoln Day and Douglas Day still was being celebrated in the 1940s and 50s. So in many places we were. But what Woodson did, and what a lot of Black people did, is that they held these expositions. And every time after emancipation, somebody wanted to hold a state exposition or a national exposition, we had to be there. And we had to hold an exhibition hall to demonstrate that what progress we had made from emancipation moving forward. Okay, so even back in those days, and it was in 1915 with the Jubilee celebration of emancipation, and with the 50th anniversary of Lincoln's assassination, there was this big national exposition in Chicago with Black people from all over the country, tens of thousands of Black people. And that's where Woodson made up his mind to form the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. And so we were always part of this celebrating and organizing, and Woodson was with the common folks in doing this. And this is the point I really want to make before I let this go. Woodson created a tradition, but he was part of that tradition. He did not come out of nowhere. He did not create this out of whole cloth. He was one of us who've always understood the power of our history. He simply gave it organization, which gives it all strength.
Thank you for that. And I will say, folks, it was earlier in my conversation with Dr. Scott that took me back into my books to pull up Schomburg's essay, The Negro Digs Up His Past. So I did steal a little bit of thunder. If you tell me something, I'm going to absolutely use it. So thank you for that. I want to come to you, Dr. Bertis English. Bertis. So I was thinking about Judge Quander, a retired judge who, when he was alive, he was an avid supporter and champion for ASALH. He once said that our history is not just worth remembering, it is worth protecting. And you don't need to be famous to be remembered. You just need to care enough to preserve what matters. As the editor of JAAH, can you talk about the importance of textual lineage and how JAAH provides the historical database that will help us to understand this moment and record what is happening?
Yeah, President, thank you again for convening this extremely informative and wonderful session. I want to do two things with the question that you asked. I want to sort of tin in with what Daryl just said regarding when Carter G. Woodson and others founded the association in 1915, because we have to understand it in the historical context of what it was, right? So we're talking not a few months before the second Ku Klux Klan was started formally at Stone Mountain, Georgia. Right? The next year when he began the journal, of course, we're talking after the viewing of Birth of a Nation. We're talking about in 1926, when the first formal celebration of Negro History Week. We're talking about a period during which state, local, federal legislators belonging to they unabashedly said the white man's party, which was the Democratic Party at that time, refused to pass anti-lynching legislation. So why this is important, why I'm staging it in this way, is because if one were not writing about this, if one were not publishing about this in the Journal of Negro History, then some of this undoubtedly would have been erased. Let's think about this further. You mentioned a bit earlier the Black History Bulletin, the Negro History Bulletin. First publication rolled off in 1937. Well, 2 years before that, of course, W.E.B. Du Bois published Black Reconstruction. I won't go on with the extremely long subtitle, but Black Reconstruction. Now, we today know that it was the most accurate history of Reconstruction today. Folks talk about Eric Fone's Reconstruction. Well, he just borrowed from W.E.B. Du Bois, elaborated, right, fleshed out, but still borrowed from what W.E.B. Du Bois had published in 1935. Important. Not one major predominantly white journal reviewed the book. Not a single one. But the Journal of Negro History did. In fact, it was reviewed by Rayford W. Logan, who was the second editor of the journal. And I would be remiss if I did not at least mention those individuals who've served in this full-time capacity before me. So Carter G. Woodson from 16 to 50. I won't give the dates of everyone, but we have to give the date for G. Woodson. Rayford Logan, again, as I mentioned. William M. Brewer, then W. Augustus Lowe. Lorraine A. Williams, and I'm going to come back. It is my hope I have time to come back and delve further into the importance of women. Alton Hornsby and then V.P. Franklin, who was the first editor of the Journal of African American History, and then my immediate predecessor, Pero Dak Bovey, and all of the individuals who worked with them, and including, of course, the folk who worked with me, Crystal Sanders, who is at Emory, Jelani Favors, who is now at UNCF, and then Maurice Robinson at Alabama State. And it is important to note David Cook, who serves as the editorial assistant, Alabama State, a student, and then David Walton, who is at Lincoln. Now, mentioning all of these folk to say that the journal has not been an exercise that has been done by a single person or in a silo. All these individuals have worked to not only preserve the historical record, but also to make the historical record available. As Daryl mentioned, there were folks who said, well, there is no history. There are folk who are still to this day, classicists, many of them, Europeanists, and others who say that, well, there is really no history that is worth preserving. So let us not keep this in the past. As recently as January 1923, a certain governor, whose state I shall not say, but it rhymes with Florida, said for the AP Advanced Study Pilot that it was not worth having because the information lacked educational value. Again, these are fallacies. These are lies, frankly, that the persons who have contributed to the Journal of African American History have helped to expose and will continue to help to expose in the future. So again, it is so very important, as it was in the past, as it has been, that we not only have the record, right? You're talking about that record, having the documents, the primary source documents, but also that we write about those documents in a factual way. Others certainly have written about, again, going back to Reconstruction, right? It was the destruction of honest rule. It was ignorant Negroes and these greedy Northerners with these misinformed white Southerners, right, who control the period. And we know that was not true. I guarantee you, and I won't delve, Daryl, into second Reconstruction, whether that's an accurate term, third Reconstruction, whether that's an accurate term. But I will say this. It is impossible for someone who is being honest, for someone who is being honorable, to suggest that there are not similarities between what individuals did before and immediately following the American Civil War, what took place during the Nadir, what took place during the modern civil rights movement, and today. Again, this is why we must control the narrative. We must be able to write about and serve why this is important for posterity, because if we don't, I'll guarantee you that someone else will, and it will not be accurate, and it will not be accurate on purpose.
No, thank you for that. I also would be remiss if I did not mention Dr. Levon Neal and Dr. Alicia Moore, who at 20 years are the longest serving editors of the Black History Bulletin, formerly known as the Negro History Bulletin. So I want to mention their names in this space. I want to come to Dr. Daryl Michael Scott. I'll come back to you because we know that when we're dealing with historians, I saw your eyes roll up. We always have to make sure we're coming back because you are the keepers of that story, the keepers of our story. Can you talk for a second, Dr. Scott, about the importance of ASALH? I know that we are doing the work to make sure that when people think about Black History Month and they think about Dr. Carter G. Woodson, that they also think about ASALH, that it is that bridge between those who are in the academy and those who are learning history on the streets, that it's about bringing together at the parties, at the convention. It doesn't matter whether you've actually formally studied Black history. If you love it and you want to learn it, this is a place where you can do that. So talk a bit about ASALH at this moment and us going forward.
Okay, well, Woodson built a house, as we now increasingly call the House of Woodson, that had a beautiful relationship between the intellectuals and the community. He built an organization. When he established Negro History Week in 1926, the next thing he did following that was to create branches. And what a lot of people don't understand, we know our branches exist to do local history, but the import of all that is it meant that Black history would be a day in, day out affair. That the association wasn't just going to have an annual conference where scholars met. They were going to have branches where local people taught themselves their history, dug up their own local past, talked about what contributions they had made. And this is very important, and this became important throughout over all the years and in the present, because we all have a role to play in making sure that despite what happens in our schools, we still are getting the word out, the good news about that beautiful history that Carter G. Woodson talked about in 1920 to his frat brothers, the Qs, when he said, go out and teach that beautiful history. And so we are all in charge to do precisely that today. And I would even go one step further. I really do believe that if we're going to have an accurate record of what's going on, we have to start asking our branches to record that local history by taking cell phones out into the public, keeping your own personal archives of what's going on. That they, you know, one of the interesting things about the civil rights movement to me is that the cameras weren't everywhere.
Right.
And now the cameras are everywhere. Right. They're everywhere we are. And it's not just taking video to prove somebody's done something wrong, but that is most important.
That's important.
Okay. It's important. It's also taking video of things to that local history or things that should be nationally known, can be known. And it's not even about, sometimes, of course, loading it up to the cloud and on social media, but start archiving what you film. And let us get a digital repository. Let us prepare for that digital repository so that we can be the keepers of the truth, so that we can testify and not just simply testify as a firsthand witness, but also with firsthand video. Okay. And that, in other words, and this is something we used to do. We used to preserve the record at the association. And yet, once again, we are in a position to preserve the record. We can do that now. Okay. That's something that's almost old for us and new for us. And on this last note, sometimes I don't like historical analogies because they confuse us. They make us want to make something look evil today by relating it to the past. But in the heart of Jim Crow in the United States, there was something fundamentally different about our federal government. Carter G. Woodson collected 20 years worth of records. And in the mid 1930s, he felt good enough about our government that he deposited all of his records in Congress. Today, I wouldn't advise that.
Right.
Some things are worse than what they were.
Right.
We talk about here people talking about McCarthyism. Trump. Well, McCarthy had nothing on Trump, right? In other words, a lot of things that we see going on today are their own brand of evil. And people will look back and compare everything to what's going on now because we don't fully see it, and this is not a finished story. So we should be collecting everything and making our own provisions for keeping things.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Scott. I could actually listen to the two of you all evening long, like a class, a mini class just for me. But I do need to start wrapping this up. And so I want to come back to you, Bertis, because I want you to follow up on something that Dr. Scott laid down about keeping the truth, which to me means also seeking the truth, but also being able to tell the difference between the truth and the lies that we're being fed. Both of them are happening. And sometimes the lies are a bit shinier. The lies go viral, and the lies then try to swallow the truth. Talk a bit about why it's important that in the heart of also recording things that people are studying Black history so they can get grounded in the truth.
Yeah, that I'm making sure that I don't speak in a way that's going to seem to disparage anyone, but there are individuals who have become extremely popular, right? And I'm not talking about bona fide public historians, but individuals whose educational backgrounds, whose academic training is not in history. And I'm not suggesting that you have to have that academic type of education to be able to write and research and record history. That's not the case, but there are individuals who speak all the time as if they are extremely familiar about topics, and they oftentimes are wrong. In fact, some do hold terminal degrees and they're wrong. But you are completely right, because now, of course, we're living in a period where many individuals get their so-called news from social media, and they oftentimes do not distinguish between what's commentary and what's actual news. So it's so valuable for us to make sure that future generations, the youth in particular, are fed the facts about history and not just the myth. You know, the United States of America has done a great job. Its citizens have done a great job of making myth to make individuals, for example, truly believe that that Declaration of Independence applied to all folk. I mean, even the 250th, no, it's not the 250th of the country, it's the 250th of the Declaration of Independence. European countries didn't even recognize American independence. So not to move too far, I did want to try to put that in that, let's dig that in there real fast. But it's important again for our youth to be able to determine fact from fiction, so that when those folk who not just attempt to misinform, but to disinform, present them information, they're able to say instantaneously, that's inaccurate. I mean, a superfluous example. I know it is, but I'm going to use it anyhow because it's easy. How many times have individuals gotten to college and still some think that Christopher Columbus came to, I tell my students, the Gump Town. I said he never came to the Gump Town. He was nowhere close, but the United States of America still has a national holiday. Again, moving back, not to just, Schomburg, who was a member of a certain fraternity, not the Qs, love all divine nine. My son is Omega, my dad was an Alpha, I'm a Kappa. So hey, here it is. Now that said, and I appreciate, of course, the work that the divine nine do to help ASALH. But again, we come back to this position where, speaking, for example, about the Black History Bulletin, very purposeful in the way that that was established and what it does. You mentioned, for example, middle school history. You mentioned, for example, high school history. You mentioned, for example, also preparing teachers to be able to instruct, providing those documents to make sure that the youth are prepared to enter into these discussions later on, where they have to essentially teach others factual history about the United States of America and the greater African diaspora. That, to me, images fantastic, music fantastic, but it's something about that literary written record that to me holds such a wonderful truth that not only has to be preserved, but it has to be exploded.
And so, Dr. Daryl Michael Scott, I will end with you. In this segment, before we have our last little bit of social artivism and I say the closing words. So we're now here kicking off a century of Black History commemorations. We set the theme every year for Black History Month, and we're very intentional, folks, about the theme. It's not something that's done at the last minute. We think about it, we ponder, we pass ideas around, we get prepared for what is coming. So we knew that this was going to be a big year to help people understand that we have to talk about what is happening. We didn't know we'd be talking about it in a moment when Black history is under attack in a very different type of way. So can you help us in your last words, Dr. Scott, in what people really should be focused on doing this month, outside of recording the history? We get that, recording what's happening, outside of making sure that we don't just celebrate the 250th and call it the 250th of America. I dug that back in there, Dr. English, but that people are really doing the work to preserve, protect, promote. They're doing the work to share, to get into the spaces, and to make sure that every time they have an opportunity, they're learning something new about our history and they're teaching it.
Oh, it's so important now to teach people our history. You know, I tend to like the 19th century, but I'm here to say that we have to teach people the importance of the lesson of Reconstruction, right? And we have to teach people about the importance of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, okay? Because our community doesn't fully understand, and I know we came out in droves, and that we supported the candidate who would uphold those amendments. I do know that. But there are too many people in our community and within the reach of our community who don't fully understand that history don't love nobody. That history, as Reconstruction and the aftermath of Reconstruction teaches us, will go backwards. That the rights you have today can be lost, and we always assume that they can be retrieved, but they're not always retrieved. I'm still shocked that the right to an abortion is not a central political issue right now. We just lost that right. Women lost that right within the last few years.
Yes.
And yet, it may not ever come back.
Yeah.
Some say science may take care of that problem. But just imagine if that right is gone, because it's important for women who are carrying children who might not come to term, and in that process kill them.
Right.
Okay. So these rights can be lost, and we have to tell our community what is literally at stake, that Constitution can be interpreted and reinterpreted. It can, and so you go an extreme. Who thought birthright citizenship was in question?
Yep.
Now, I've known about that movement for a very long time. I know many liberals as late as 2 years ago said, no way. I now think that they are really giving serious thought to saying, if you are born in this country of two non-American parents,
Oh, yes.
that you're not going to be a citizen. Okay? So the conservatives are no longer conservatives. The conservatives are reactionaries.
Mm.
And that we have to teach our folks that these rights we have, what they are, why they are important, how we are losing them, and why we need to fight. We should never let them say again, well, you keep saying every election matters. Yes, every election
Matters. There are consequences. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott. Folks, the Dobbs decision is what Dr. Scott was referring to in terms of losing the right to terminate a pregnancy, originally around body autonomy, and that's from 2022. I want to go to Dr. Bertis English for his last word, what people should be focusing on as we wrap this segment with a final piece of artivism, and then we'll be done.
Yes, focus on reading the Journal of African American History. Focus on reading the Black History Bulletin. I mean, again, you have the items that you need, right? And I'm not chastising anyone. I'm not by no means. If you're on this broadcast, then you're already doing that. But it's also, I think, a very important obligation of ours to make sure that we likewise are making these items available to others. So if you happen to be on and you are not a member of ASALH, then I'm making a push for you to join. If you are a member of ASALH and you are not a life member, well, I'm making a push to join. If you have the resources to make these journals and others available to students in particular, please consider doing so. Again, we have the resources. We just have to make sure that we continue to make those resources available to live up and live out the dream of Carter G. Woodson and others.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daryl Michael Scott, Dr. Bertis English. Thank you so much for your work. Thank you for your work to the Executive Council and your work to JAAH. Folks, we have one final piece of social artivism, and then I'll say some closing words and we will wrap up. So Lillian Green is a poet who uses the power of the pen and cultural and historical meanings to frame these moments. She's going to share with her poem, I Am Perfectly Black, and then I'll be back to close us.
Good evening, good people, and thank you for having me this evening. The poem again is entitled, I Am Perfectly Black. I am perfectly Black. My ancestors were, and I am, perfectly Black. I need not deny it or put on an act. Who I am is an undisputed fact. I am perfect. I am Black. I come from ancestors who came through. I know what I am here to do. I am here to keep their legacy intact. With them, I have a spiritual pact. Our soul connection is real. Their power I am able to feel. In their power, I know what can be done. Toward them, I do not walk, I run. Their spirits are ever near, reminding me of what is clear. It is clear the future is now here. The future of ancestors who cried perfect tears. Tears through which they were able to see. Descendants not yet born absolutely free. Of those descendants, I am but one, yet many more are destined to come. For those to come, I must be true, and like our ancestors, I must come through. Through the middle passage of this day and time, moving humanity into a new paradigm. In this knowledge, I firmly stand, rooted to my ancestral land. I stand firm. I stand free. Girded by ancestors who are here with me. Like them, I am perfectly Black. I am perfect. I am Black. I am perfect. I am Black. I am perfect. I am Black. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Lillian Green, and thank you to all of our artists tonight, for our social artivism, for our panelists. Folks, our 2026 theme again is a century of Black History Commemorations. And it is fitting for this moment that we take time to look back so we can push forward. We stand in the House of Woodson, and just as he did with the work of so many others, we will uplift our history. We will protect it, we will promote it, and we will preserve it. We're going to plant our trees of truth right beside their trees of lies, and we're going to teach our children how to choose the path that will then uplift who they are. We're going to teach them what it means to stand strong and how to stand tall in moments of adversity, how to bring clarity in moments of confusion, and how to choose and embrace love instead of hate. We ask you to join us by becoming a member of ASALH, which Dr. Bertis just mentioned. You need to be a member of ASALH. And if you're able to, donate to our work. People have been asking in the chat, what can they do at this moment? Here are just 3 things. If you are already a member of ASALH, you will get our newsletter tomorrow that will lay out our 10 new steps for our North Star. What can I do every day? So first, find the organizations and institutions that are doing the work that you agree with and defend them with everything you have. Black press is under attack. Black radio is under attack. Black organizations are under attack. Now is the time for you to lean in just a little bit harder. I tell people, if you get a cup of coffee every day for $5, give it up for 1 week. That's $25, and you can plant that seed into an organization. 2, show up and be present in spaces where you are not expected to be. Go to the community meetings, go to the Senate, go to the Congress, phone bomb, email bomb, do whatever you can so that those that are elected will understand that they are not in the job to make money. They're in the job to do our work. They're in the job to defend our freedom. Do not discount the power of a well-organized and well-planned march. I saw one on my way coming today. It was 10 people with signs going, "No ice here," and they were holding shovels. Sometimes all you need is 10 people, a shovel, and a sign. Do that with the people in your community. And finally, vote with your money. Make intentional, thoughtful purchases as often as you can. We've been boycotting Target for a year, and it has had an impact. Buy local, buy small, support Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, businesses owned by people of color. Show up and help them to understand you control your money and you can control where you spend it. ASALH will be here. We are a lighthouse. We invite you to join us for free on February 28th at our authors table in Washington, D.C. There's going to be a veiling of 2 postal stamps that will be released. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank all the members of the Executive Council, from our Vice President, Anita Shepard, to our Vice President for Programs, Aisha Hakel, to our Treasurer, John Adams, to our Secretary, David Walton, and all the other members. And a special thank you to the longest-running Executive Director outside of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, Sylvia Cyrus, and the work that she has done to keep the candle of ASALH still burning. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Thank you for the work that you will do over the next 27 days to help us to push back and push forward. We are ASALH strong, and we appreciate you.